Hello, this is Nikki Keohoho, CEO and co-founder of the DSWA. I would like to introduce to you our friend Mick Toomey. He's the co-founder of Pointburst to all of you. Pointburst is a social media activation company. Their value is to activate the social influence of your field. I was able to meet Mick in person in Dallas recently and to talk about his view on the power of social media and how he sees it all coming together in the direct selling space. I asked him to speak to all of you on this executive forum because I believe that his insight can be beneficial to you and to your field. I've got to say, what I learned from Mick in those few minutes was an opportunity to take all of our companies and our communication with the sales force to a very new level. So, Mick, we'd like to ask you a few questions here that will support us in learning about how this all works and what we can do to be better in our social media. So what do you think social media is and why it is so important for a direct selling organization?
Well, first, Nikki, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk with you guys. I think social media is important to every organization. Really, no matter what kind of business you're in, there is this relational aspect, especially today, and especially with everything that technology is bringing, that social media has really changed the game. I think that specifically in direct selling, you've got a unique opportunity here because you've got this volunteer army of salespeople, and you think about the impact that these folks can have, whether you're launching a product, unveiling a new offer, announcing an event, or trying to mitigate some negative news out there. You've got this army of little media companies that could help get the right message out at the right time. And you think about some of the things that happened in social media over the recent years. Think about Facebook going public. They ran into some issues when they first went public, because everybody started to dig in and realize that, they're not making any money for real. So they needed to find ways to change their model and get more revenue focused. And you can see on this slide here, you can see that this is the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, you can see that the organic reach on social media went from, around 12% down to around 6% in a period of 5 months. And what that's doing, you can also see the offset where their stock price is going up. And that's because they're now charging brands to reach the fans that already have indicated that they like them. And so what that boils down to is you've got the brands out there that actually have to pay to reach people that already like them. So you think about, I think the last stats I saw is the brand pages are now reaching anywhere from 2 to 6% of the people that like them. And when you translate that into like one of our companies, I was looking at talking with a good-sized direct selling company last week. They've got about 60,000 fans on Facebook. You apply that 6% reach, and they're only touching 4,000 people when they do a post instead of that 50 that you might expect. Conversely, you look at if they've got about 15,000 active reps with about 300 friends each, you start drilling into that, and now you're over 1 million people, and these are new people who are being reached by trusted friends. And that's really the power. That's when you start looking at how do I grow, especially with social media. You start looking at that volunteer army of salespeople, and that's where the real opportunity lies.
Boy, when numbers don't lie, when you bring it out like that, it helps us to understand. We also understand, Mick, that with the gift of a volunteer army comes risk. And what do you think are the biggest risks out there that you see with the direct selling and the use of social media?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that you're exactly right to phrase it that way. You've got this volunteer army. It's a huge gift, and it's a great benefit. It also can be a bit of a liability and at least a bit of a risk. And so you think about, you've got these hundreds or thousands of people all out there trying to spread the word about, their company, your company, and they become your brand advocates. But they're also going to then interpret that brand message in the way that they see it. And there could be a lot of good coming from that, but, there's a lot of risk also. Anytime you've got that number of people kind of doing their own thing, creating their own messaging, it can get a bit scary. One example, we were working with a company based here in Dallas, and they weren't doing a whole lot in terms of support on social media, and this guy wanted to get out and communicate with his friends, his family, so he put together his own little video explaining the value proposition and a little bit about the brand. However, he created it on his phone, sitting on his bed in his apartment, in this stained white sleeveless T-shirt, and talking about the brand in ways that they didn't really want the brand being discussed. And you got hats off to the guy for taking initiative, but you also really do need to keep in mind the piece about the compliant messaging, keeping that brand message pure. There's a lot going on also around Miriam right now with some of the stuff that they've been into with people doctoring some photos. So there's a lot of risk if it's not managed well, but I think it's greatly overpowered by the benefit. You just need to keep a lot of this stuff in mind and make sure that you've got an infrastructure in place that enables your reps to be successful on social media and do it in the right way and really just make it easy.
So everyone thinks social media is great, and so many people come on there and they talk about what they had for dinner and a lot of things that maybe are of interest to other people. But do you believe that all direct selling representatives should be on social media?
I think that all reps who want to be on social media should be. I don't think it's something that is going to be a requirement, but I think that it's something. If you want to be there, you're going to be genuine, you're going to be sincere, and I think that counts for a lot. The reality is just people don't have a lot of inherent abilities in this. It truly is a learned skill. And when you think about, a lot of these reps that are coming into this, they've cultivated a social media following over the years, and it's really just friends and family who have trusted them and want to be a part of their world in some fashion. And there's a lot of opportunity there because you can reach out to these people who truly do care about the kind of stuff that you're working on, what's going on in your life, and then want to be more of a part of it. But the reality is, how many of those guys are social media experts? I think as we've seen, the skill set that they've got in your products, specifically, more generally in business or marketing or social media, it's going to vary significantly across the organization. So you've got to make sure that you are providing everyone with the right tools and resources to be successful. And, like we said, without the right support, the reps are going to figure it out. They're going to figure something out. They all want to be successful. Social media is, you think about direct selling in general, kind of where the roots came from. It's a very relationship-oriented business, always has been. And social media has become kind of the new technology, the new age of how you manage and maintain these relationships. So they're going to find a way to do it. A friend of mine joined a supplement company, and she was so excited to promote all this stuff to her friends, and she ended up writing like an entire paragraph about everything there was to do about this supplement company and inviting people to come join. And again, kudos to her for taking the effort, but it's not the right way to communicate via social media. And that's really what needs to happen. I think everybody who wants to be active on social should be. Just make sure that they've got the right tools and the right support to make sure that they're successful.
You say that social media is the new way of communicating and keeping up with other people's lives. I just found out this last week that my sister follows me on social media just so she knows where I am and what I'm doing. And she does that with my nieces, my nephews, with the whole family. And I thought, wow, I had no idea she probably knew what was going on more than I did, because she just stayed there and didn't necessarily communicate or write anything back or like anything. She just read and saw what was going on. And I think a lot of people do that. We all know that social media will help with relationships, but it can't replace that face-to-face, what we do in our profession by connecting and communicating with people. It enhances it, as you say, maybe doesn't necessarily take the place of it. And so people, we find a lot in direct selling, they want to sit behind the computer and think they're going to build their business that way. It will support, not take the place of. And so I think every company has to be very clear about that in how they communicate with their field and how to use social media. So what are some of the more challenging aspects of being successful on social media?
Well, I think that there are challenges on either side. On either side being when you're trying to create that brand presence from a corporate perspective, but also if you're a rep and trying to be effective. Because you're exactly right. You don't want the reps behind the desk trying to be perfect on social. You want them out interacting with people. You want them having conversations, developing relationships. The social should be there as kind of a conversation starter and a very subtle support level to make them more successful. And so I think a lot of the big challenges include time. That's probably the biggest one, is time to be able to be effective. And then when you think about kind of bigger picture things, it's the distribution piece. How do you get the right content out to all of these reps? It's about brand purity. You've got to keep the message clean. You've got to have, from a corporate perspective, a real leadership standpoint that shows that that social is important. It's important to us, and how we manage it is one of our core focuses. But I think the biggest challenge to all of this is content, because you can be great at all of that other stuff, but if you're not sharing good content, then none of the other stuff really matters. And truly, that's where a lot of the complexity comes in. The coming up with great content on a regular basis, that's truly a skill. I mean, you've got to be creative, you've got to be thoughtful, you've got to understand the brand, and frankly, you've got to understand whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever the new thing is. You've got to be up to date and sharp with all of that stuff. So, to me, I think probably the biggest challenge is maintaining and developing that great content on an ongoing basis.
I would agree with that, because what we find is, the larger companies, they'll have someone that is dedicated to social media, or a department that is dedicated to social media. And many of our smaller companies or companies in startup or that run on a small staff, this is a major thing. That how do I do this? That's what they say. Now I have to do this. I'm doing this. Now I have to do this. So when you're talking about content creation, we know if you haven't got it in-house, then maybe there's a possibility of outsourcing. What are your thoughts around that?
I think whether you do it in-house or outsource, I think is really a case-by-case decision. I think kind of like you said, a lot of these big organizations, they're going to have people, they're going to have departments around it. But some of the smaller ones, they're not. But you know what? A lot of those smaller ones are in that unique opportunity that they have the ability to kind of build social media into the corporate DNA. It's everything about who they are. But to do that, to your point, you need to make sure that you've got that right content in-house, or at least available in-house, which means maybe it's outsourcing. And I think outsourcing is not a bad option at all. For some organizations, I think it's a wonderful option because it can be cost-effective, and you know that you're getting the right stuff. It's also a great way to start building your team. You can have these group of experts creating this content for you on an outsourced basis, and as you grow, as you get a little bit more resource-driven, you can start bringing some people in-house and build your team slowly and learn from that group. So, I don't think there's a single answer in terms of in-source or outsource, but I think the key is making sure that you've got the right content coming out, and frankly, both for the corporate group and for the field.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because sometimes another view is a good thing, because we only know what we know, and getting new feedback from others, I think, can be a very positive thing. The other thing is to me, if you were going to outsource any area of this as a company, you've got to make sure that company understands your culture and what you're about, and your language and your field. So invite them to your conferences, invite them to your events, invite them in to meet people so they get a total feel of what you're about, and that comes across in the writing. So, you mentioned content for a moment there, Mick, about, content for the corporate and the reps. Aren't they the same?
It can be. It can be, but I think more than it's the same, I think it's linked, it's tied, it's aligned. As you said, if you outsource it, these people are going to have to be really ingrained into your organization. It's not like outsourcing the accounting group where you just shoot them a file and they take care of it. They've got to be a real part of your organization, understand what makes your organization tick to be effective on this. And to that end, they're going to create a story, right? They're going to create a voice about your company. And that's the perfect thing to build upon. You want to keep that same thread as you move through all your different social media outlets, but beyond that, from corporate down to the field. And I talk a lot about field content versus corporate because it's the same basis, but the voice is different. To me, it's more sharing. It's more alerting people of here's what's going on in my world than kind of traditional like advertising you might see on a brand side. Or it's a little bit more personal. It's a little bit softer. And so it's all the same content at a high level, but it's tweaked a little bit to have the voice of the rep himself, herself. Does that make sense?
Totally, because I've seen that several times where a company will create something and it is not the language of their field. It's almost institutional or legal,
right.
or, it has that kind of a flair to it. And the field doesn't even feel good putting it out there because they say it doesn't sound like me. So
exactly.
I believe on the money on that, between two different voices and a much more casual voice for your field. So thank you for that clarification. Nick, do you have an opinion on whether representatives should create business pages on Facebook or use their personal profiles?
I have a very strong opinion on this one. Without question, I think the reps will have more success using their personal profiles. That's where their relationships are. That's where they reside. That's where they've built their following for years. How long have these guys been on social media, right? A long time. And the people that you connect with are the people that, for the most part, actually care about what's going on in your world. If you start looking at what happens if you create a business page, which I know a lot of organizations are encouraging their people to do, create a business page for your direct selling stuff, keep your personal stuff personal. That's great, but people are going to go follow your page because you ask them to, and probably, I would argue how many times those people are going to actually go back to that business page. Because people aren't checking Facebook because they want to hear about your business. For the most part, people are checking Facebook or social media in general because they want to hear about you. And as long as you are balancing the messaging correctly, where it's pictures of you at the game or your kids doing this, your dog doing that, and then, every 2 out of 10, it's something about your business, that's okay. People want to be involved. They want to understand what makes you tick. But they don't want to be just message after message after message about your supplement business, It's not what they want to see. And I think I saw a study that said most people, I think it said 1% of people who like a brand ever go back to that brand's page a second time. So to me, that's pretty telling about if you want to be successful, make sure that you're going where the people are and take advantage of those relationships that you've cultivated over the years and manage it well. Don't sell, share. And I think that you'll see that you're going to be successful that way.
I have both Nikki Keohoho and then we have DSWA, so we have two different, approaches. I probably post more on my Nikki because it's more my style and more fun. and it's about my life and where I am and the people I meet. It's really all about the people. Yes, we put up coaching questions and those kinds of things, so there's value there. Yet I know that that is more me. That DSWA, we do it is more business focused, yet we still work to keep that personal touch in there, because what we know is people want relationships. They don't want to be sold, as you say. So it's more sharing approach, and for women in particularly, you know, we like that word. We'd rather share than sell, and that's how we sell is by just sharing, and it's interesting how that all works. So how have you seen social media and direct selling changing over the years?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think that there's been a tremendous amount of change in a relatively short amount of time. You know, our company could have started out in the entertainment space, dealing with record labels and movie studios and TV networks, and dealing with the entertainment properties and their fans. But we saw that there's a real opportunity in direct selling to use the same technology. And so I just started coming to this about 3 years ago, trying to learn more about the industry, try to get a little bit smarter, meet some people. And it was interesting. As I talked to people at the beginning, people were very kind of standoffish about social media. They weren't yet ready to embrace it, I guess, by a long shot. You know, it was all about policies and procedures, about restricted use, and you can say this, you can't say that. But they also talked about that it was frankly impossible to police the whole thing. So what's interesting now is, you know, this is, let's say, even a year and a half ago, so after a year and a half of this stuff, people started to create, it was more of a poll now. They wanted to learn more about social media, not really ready to jump in with both feet, but they knew that this was where they needed to be. And now, you know, I think you're seeing a whole lot of movement around social media. Everybody knows that they need to be there. And people, some of them are really embracing it and moving quickly. Others are just trying to figure out the right jumping off point. And, you know, understandable. It's the way everything's changing. But the key is to be successful on social now. And I think the direct selling companies are really getting this now. You know, you can't just throw a library of content out there and host some social media training classes and expect people to be successful. You know, it's more complex than that. It's more of a challenging process to get it set up. But if you set it up right, it's gonna just hum and move forward well. So it's really about kind of digging in and enabling the reps to have a great social media presence, enabling them to feel like they're a part of things, but don't have to do all of the creation themselves, and, you know, make it easy. And I think you do that, I think everybody wins.
Make it easy. That is a very powerful little term there. So many times we make things so hard. You know, one company we worked with, they came out with, and finally they said, you can use social media. And they had a 23-page booklet of all the things you can't do. And I went, oh, this is scary.
And I'm sure everyone went and read that cover to cover, right?
Oh, yes. Direct sellers always read. It's very detailed.
Right.
So when you think about this, the terms that we've gone through and how we've, you know, the terms for different things. Well, what do you think about the term social selling?
A friend of mine wrote a book called Social Selling, and so I like the term. I like more what it represents than the actual term, because I think when people start thinking about social selling, it kind of puts them in a different direction. The one that I think about a lot is social sharing. And it's, you know, some of what we've talked about before. It's not about the hard sell on social media. You know, it's about sharing what's going on in your world with people who actually care, and letting this be the beginning of a conversation and not the quickest line to swiping a credit card. But it's that way to reach out to people who care and begin a conversation to see what moves forward. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's one of the, I don't like the term social media gurus, but he's like one of the guys out there that knows probably more than most about social media and where everything is headed. And he was doing some things with direct selling recently, and he encouraged direct selling companies to look at themselves as a media company first, and, you know, a retailing company second, because he says that all of these reps, this Army, volunteer Army salespeople, they're really just mini media companies. And you've got to be smart. And how do you take advantage of all that? And a lot of it is making sure that you are enabling the reps to be successful. So you've probably heard that people talk about Facebook is like the backyard barbecue. So, you picture that. You're going through this backyard barbecue. Are you going to be coming into the backyard barbecue saying, passing things out about your new supplement program that you're doing? You've got your credit card swiper, telling people you can get them up and running and start feeling more healthy tomorrow. Just swipe here, we'll get you on auto ship. You're probably not going to get invited back, to the next barbecue. But it's more about coming and starting to talk to people, talk to your friends, meet new people, talk about what's going on in your life, talk about your kids, your friends, your family, everything that's happening. And then, yes, you also talk about your job. But it's more of a discussion. It's more sharing. And that's the kind of stuff that I think is more natural, therefore more engaging, and what ends up being far more successful on social media.
It's sort of like being at the backyard barbecue and being interested in other people. We say people find you interesting when you are interested in them. And that's why I believe through social media, just asking questions and getting people's opinion of things and finding out what they see and what they feel and what matters to them. Boy, you build relationships with that versus, let me tell you what I got for you and you need this, honey. It just isn't effective. I have heard people talk about employing gamification to drive behavior. What do you think about that, and how would you describe gamification?
Well, all right, let's talk about how I describe it. Gamification, you hear all about like leaderboards and incentive programs and stuff like that. And I think gamification can be effective. I've seen it be effective in a lot of different organizations and used in a lot of different ways. I actually had a marketing exec from a relatively large Dallas-based direct selling company in my office a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about gamification because we're using it in some of our other clients, and I threw it out to him to see what he thought of it in the direct selling space. And he actually said that people have been talking about it in this space for a long time, but haven't done a lot about it. What he liked about it is that you could assign, for lack of a better term, let's say points to certain behaviors, that would move you towards success. There's some kind of achievement you're going to get when you do these things. But in reality, when you're achieving these goals, whether it's doing this social media post, whether it's sharing this thing, it's reaching out to these people, in any case, you're getting points for that. And when you get these certain points, in return, you get complimentary product from the organization, stuff like that. So it's things that put incentives in place for the reps, especially at the beginning, to do things that will ultimately drive their success. So the way we were talking about it is, what an opportunity to create, a retention tool. If we can make 1 out of 10 of these new reps a little bit more successful from the get-go, which means they hang on a little bit longer and actually get ingrained and start doing this, we can increase, or let's say decrease the roll-off rate, increase the retention rate by even 10%. That's a significant impact to revenue, to bottom line, to a whole lot of different things. So I don't know that gamification's for everybody, but considering some of the impacts, I think it's probably worth a shot to check it out.
I think that's a very good point, because I think anything that you can do to create a sense of community for people to belong, and people like to win, people like to earn things, people like the excitement of that, and we attracted a lot of people with those kinds of behavior styles that matters to them. The part about creating community, though, it's one of the key things we teach in our leadership program, is that feeling, that sense of belonging. And because we have so many people remote, and particularly in countries like Australia, the people that live out in the bush, they're a long ways from many people, or the rest of the population. So they've got to find ways to participate and to belong to the community that's an online community. They don't have meetings, so those types of things are going to make them be more engaged and feel that they belong. So interesting thoughts around that. So another question, how do you see, the mobile devices entering into this space?
I think mobile is definitely here, and I think it's here in a big way. Also, what you said about that creating a sense of community and belonging to something, we could have a whole session based on that topic alone, because I agree with you 100%. And everything that you can do to create that sense of community is going to benefit everybody. And it kind of does feed into this because, we're all very active people these days, but it's also much of it's happening on the mobile world. A lot of our clients right now, they are opting for a mobile-only approach with their reps. So they're doing a branded app that, with our functionality, but it's branded for them, and they're not even offering the platform because they want to have the reps out there kind of doing things, and they want to be able to reach the reps where they are and make it accessible for wherever they are, not have to be sitting behind a computer. So I think already social and mobile are integrated so tightly. I think something like 80% of people who look at Facebook look at it on their mobile phones. So with that level of integration, I don't see it going anywhere but more connected. And we've got a mobile solution, and the reps just love it because they're getting these suggested posts on their phone when they're out and about.
So let's go to, where do you think the social will be in direct selling over the next 5 years? Because we have a lot of great opportunities, and we know that, and I certainly believe that it's going to be more embraced over time. I'd like your opinion on that.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's only going to grow. I think it's only going to continue, and I think the progression is it's going to be more seamless, more dialed in, more integrated with everything that we do. You think back to where we are right now with replicated websites. Can you imagine stuff not being kind of a standard at this point? It's expected. If you're doing this kind of business, you're going to have your replicated site, and here's how you sell.
So, Mick, where do you think social media will be in direct selling over the next 5 years?
I think it's a good question. I think that it's going to continue to get more seamless and more integrated and more dialed in. You think about the progression that's happened with replicated websites over the last few years. I mean, I think that's the kind of integration that you're going to see with social media across every organization out there. Specifically, probably one of the enablers is going to be integration with the back office systems. There are any number of back office systems out there today. We're talking to several of them right now, and as we speak, we're having these conversations about integrating in. Everybody's talking about social, but none of the back office systems have anything significant on social. If you talk to them, they're all working on something with social. So my guess is it's going to happen quick. My guess is a year from now, we have this conversation, 80% of the back office systems are going to have some component of social media integrated in. And beyond that, I think most of them are not going to build it themselves. They're going to integrate with some cutting-edge social media company where that's what they do. And it's just going to take too long to actually build it themselves. So I see a lot of integration in the very near future. I think it's going to look like a big differentiator at the beginning. And very soon after that, it's going to be just standard fare. If you've got a back office system for direct selling, it's going to have a robust social media component. And that's kind of how I see it coming together in the very near future.
I would agree with you on that. Mick, I recently had several companies or executives say to me, Nikki, do you think we should have social media? What do you think we should do? Is that necessary? And I've had a saying for many years, don't ask me what I think if you don't want to know what I think. And I shared with them that it's my belief that if you do not have a solid social media program going on in your company that is company-driven, that people that are looking at your company that are going to say, wow, they're kind of behind the times. And especially the young people are going to look and say, well, that's a little old school. I don't know that I want to be a part of that company. I believe it is going to be necessary for every company to step into this realm. What are your thoughts on that, Mick?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think, like you said, with the young people, they've grown up with social. All they know is social. And if they're talking to a company that's not doing that, I think that they're going to have real doubts on if it's something that they want to get involved in. The other side is the reps are going to be on social. That's just a fact. So I think a lot of these organizations, I think it would be good for them to take advantage of that, to help to take the lead on it, and make sure that what they're offering is, something good for the brand and something good for the rep, but make sure that you're leading it as opposed to kind of following it and trying to manage it from the outside. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch all this over the next 2 years. DSWA is very excited to have you be an alliance partner and partnering with us to bring good tools and resources out to the world of direct selling. And for our companies, these executive forums that we offer quite frequently allow everyone to have the cutting edge, what's new, what's happening, and to be in a place of in the know. So I hope that all of you take the time to listen to these and to learn more about what's going on out there. I want to first tell you, make sure you go to dswa.org to resources, and under that button at the top, you will find Alliance Partners. On the second page, you will find Point Burst. You should be able to get all of the information that you need to get the tools that you're looking for. So please, if you would take a minute, Nick, and tell everybody your contact information and maybe just quickly, briefly, a little bit about what you do.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Nikki, again, for having me on here. I really enjoyed the conversation. Best way to reach me is email Mick, M-I-C-K, .Toomey, and that's T-W-O-M-E-Y, @pointburst.com, P-O-I-N-T-B-U-R-S-T. You can also just check us out at pointburst.com. But basically what we do, we're a social enablement, a social amplification platform. So we enable organizations to empower their reps with the right content at the right time and enable them to have a really good social media presence without a lot of the work. Pretty much, I would say 80% of what we do is on mobile, so it makes it really easy for the rep. We can brand it for your organization, and then they get notified when posts come through. They can interact with it, they can edit it, and approve it to go out like they posted it themselves. So it's a great enabler, and we also do a whole lot of stuff about creating community with some other things that we offer. But be happy to talk more anytime at all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I've got to tell you, Mick, just the time I had with you, I saw your passion, not just for social media, your passion for the direct selling profession. And we love to work with people who have that true desire to serve the people. And that certainly is part of Point Burst and what you're about. So thank you for your time today, and thank you everyone for being part of the DSWA community. Have a blessed day.